So Rob already kind of mentioned that Ed Leader 21 is a national professional learning community, and it concentrates on the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So this year, Bloomfield Hills joined with 35 Ed Leader 21 member districts across the 16 states. And it was a fall 2017 cohort to administer and assess a common performance task. Ed Leaders 21's characteristics of an effective 4 C's performance task: assess the 4 C's in the context and of disciplinary content, engage students in authentic work, and result in complex products and performances aligned to both the 4 C's and the disciplinary context. The intended outcomes based on Ed Leader 21 are: use cross-district collaboration to help scale local performance assessment work, leverage common data to generate insights about local practices, identify evidence-based instructional improvements to increase students' capacity to demonstrate the 4 C's. So it was a big task. As part of this cohort, there were different roles that participated. So we have the teachers, and we have all of the teachers that participated here tonight. And the teachers needed to implement the task. They needed to assess their students along with 10 other students from around the country that were participating. They participated in a data analysis protocol at the end and provided feedback to Ed Leader 21. There were also 4 scorers that were involved, and we have one of the scorers here tonight, and there were 3 others that were involved. And the scorers engaged in scoring collaboration and assessed 40 to 50 pieces of work, and these were really like essays. Participated also in the data analysis protocol and provided feedback to Ed Leader 21. And then myself, I was considered the coordinator for the project. So my role was to orient and support, participate in the protocol, and again, to provide feedback. So we had a lot of people working together in multiple schools in the district.
We have to fight over our one slide.
I know, and we need to be near the mic. So, as Wendy was speaking about cross-district collaboration, I think that's one of the things that, having been part of the debrief, it was great to see the different schools come together. So our sister school, East Hills and West Hills, our teachers from West Hills that participated were Mr. Harrington, Brendan Harrington, and Mr. Burkholz, Kevin Burkholz, both 8th grade science teachers. We also had Jen Teal, who's our IB teacher leader, as a scorer. That's at West Hills. And I will introduce the 2 other scorers that aren't here tonight, but it was kind of that collaboration from a central office standpoint in learning services. We had Susan Golab and Kimberly Hempton. And then again, I think that the real gem was seeing all these guys working during the debrief and a lot of the reflection, and we'll get to that later on in our presentation.
All right, thanks, Rob. So I get to introduce our East Hills staff, and just to echo what Rob shared, it was great to have the support of Learning Services and Wendy's efforts bringing us all together, and then the cultures that are aligned between our buildings but bring out different perspectives when given an opportunity to look at something and to review it together collaboratively. So from East Hills, we have Julia Beatty here as our IB teacher leader, was one of the scorers, and then Doreen Morrison and Dave Lumsden. And it was a great opportunity too to have some of our new staff to the district as well, because the 3 of you are, you're in 2nd years and 1st years, so I was really encouraged to see staff who are new take on something as well. Often we kind of focus on our experienced and seasoned staff, and we have great new staff that have been able to be a part of our district as well that bring great ideas, so very fortunate in that regard as well. So with that, I think we're sliding it over to the folks that did the real work, the heavy lifting, once again, our teaching staff. So.
Okay, the arrow.
All right, so Brendan Harrington from West Hills. So essentially we had some deadlines to make. We had to implement the task. It took a week, and we implemented the task, and then the kids had 2 days to work and finish it. That had to be done by mid-November there. And then shortly after that, we had to score and upload our students' work. We scored our own students and then uploaded all of the work online. And then shortly after that, we had to do our scoring calibration, where we obviously had scored our own work, but we then scored 10 other students from another school somewhere else across the country. And then it was nice to get together with our colleagues, and that was in December, to get together with our colleagues and just kind of talk about how the whole procedure went. And also we were able to, at one point, communicate with the teachers that had scored our students' work. To just why did they score it the way they did, and we can kind of dialogue back and forth in regards to that.
So what the kids actually did, we gave them the prompt at the beginning on day one. We're going to talk about a city in Bangladesh, has a really large population. They're at the convergence of several plate tectonics, so they're very prone to earthquakes. And how can we help them avoid disaster if an earthquake hits? So we had the kids read some articles. We showed them some video clips of what was actually happening. Some of them were science-based. Some of them were more people-based about what the aftermath could actually be. So in their final product, after we watched these videos, we read the articles, had some classroom discussion about it, they had to write a letter to the mayor of Dhaka, and they had to first explain the risks faced by the people. And not necessarily just the risk faced by the people, but why are they at risk? What's the science behind some of this? Then they had to recommend 2 high priority actions that the residents of Dhaka should take to minimize those effects after the earthquake. And the tough thing the thing that the students had some trouble with was the last part. The solution should be realistic based on the social and economic situation. And I think they'll talk about that a little bit. That was one of the bigger challenges, is having the kids putting themselves in the shoes of someone who lives on the other side of the world in an environment that they don't really understand. That they had to provide strong reasons to support each of those high priority actions, and they had to support the ideas with evidence from the text as well as the videos that they watched. So the criteria, they had to write the letter in which they clearly summarized the risks faced by the people of Dhaka and explain the need for the solution. And we also wanted to make sure they included some of the science behind it, and then present the 2 high priority actions. Now this lined up really, really well with the middle years program criterion D rubric, where students are looking at using science to solve a problem, or applying science to solve a problem, and then what are the implications. So it was kind of a natural gap or bridge between what we had already been doing if they're in 8th grade or 7th grade for 1 or 2 years, and 6th and 7th grade, or just 6th grade into 8th grade. It was a fairly familiar idea for them. And then providing the justifications to convince the reader, which in this case was supposed to be the mayor. We had to tell the kids, we are not your audience. The mayor is your audience. And to convince them that that's what they should do.
I may have actually told them that we were sending letters to the mayor.
Not kidding. So with that, we will, unless you have anything else to add, we'll pass it along to our East Hills colleagues.
Good evening. I'm Julia Beatty from East Hills, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the instructional strategies that this unit really gave us the opportunity to focus on. First, it was purposeful to invoke a challenge that engaged students' commitment and investment in learning. And we really didn't just focus on one subject area. We really triangulated science, language arts, and also social issues going on in Bangladesh. And it sparked a lot of really great conversations with students and teachers around that social construct and how it impacts preparing for disaster relief. And so students were able to see the value in the interdisciplinary connections and that kind of integrative studies, and that they also were able to problem solve. They were given a real life problem that they had to use the evidence provided to them in class to solve, and they had to use critical thinking and creative thinking skills. They also, the learning intentions were made very clear to them with the success criteria, and it was explicitly known to them prior to the assessment. And I feel like this was really in our students' wheelhouse because of the MYP program. We give them task sheets and we give them very explicit criteria with task descriptors before they take an assessment. And then throughout a unit of study, we, as teachers and instructors, we scaffold those skills and those standards, and we make them clear to students that these are the skills that you need to be successful. These are the standards that we're hitting to be successful on these assessments. And so it was very explicit to students. It was very clear to them. And because of that, it led to them being able to construct those goals for themselves. They were able to look at what challenges laid ahead in the assessment, what their own strengths and weaknesses were. And so they were also able to, after writing their assessment, do a self-assessment with a rubric. And then after looking at their scores from their instructors or their scores, they were able to reflect. And they were also able to look at their strengths and their areas of growth as writers, as scientists, and also as people studying social issues going on in our world. So I thought it was really eye-opening to a lot of students and really important.
Hi, Dave Lumsden from East Hills. The great thing about the assessment method is that we at East Hills have actually a small population of students from Bangladesh. So they were able to bring their own experience into this. And as Brennan and Kevin said, it's hard for our students to put themselves into the shoes of in a culture that they're just not familiar with. It'd be hard for anybody. So having that kind of connection in our classroom with the students, and they could lend their own perspective about it and tell the kids about, oh, yeah, it's nothing like that. It's more like this. So gave us a really good connection within the classroom. And they mentioned too, this is how we teach. I sometimes feel that we're teaching in this way, but then we've got to assess this way. And this is a great way that assessment follows right along with the kind of teaching that we do. It's very authentic, where the kids learn exactly the way that they're going to be assessed. And then one thing that we found when we were kind of debriefing about this afterwards was that because it came from outside, none of us created this, we could then kind of take it apart and, this really worked, this didn't work, this is where we could go from here. Instead of somebody like, this is my baby and this is how it works, and somebody taking personal ownership of it, it was nice that we had the chance to kind of critique it and push out and see, all of us came up with different ideas of where it could go after this, or maybe a better way to start it, or a better time to implement it. So that was another very valuable piece of this assessment.
Hello, Doreen Morrison from East Hills. What do I hit? And I'm talking about the connections. And by including both disciplines, Mr. Lumsden does language arts and I do the science. By including both disciplines, we were able to encourage students to recognize that materials taught in one subject can also be taught in others. And as a science teacher, I'm really benefiting from that right now. Our first unit within the MyStar science units from Michigan Tech University is about renewable energy. But one of the secondary concepts that we're studying with that is argument writing. And having just gone through this, my students are, they're above where they could be, and I am able to cut out some of that argument writing instruction because they know that what they just did in language arts with this unit will tie into what we're doing in our classroom. The articles also allow the students to use some of the visible thinking skills that they have been using for years. And so it allowed them to use those questioning strategies as they watched the videos and read the articles in order to tie in the way we teach, the way things are done in our district, and help them to make those connections. And as was already stated, the rubrics tie in so easily with what we do already in the classroom with the MYP program. And there were very small tweaks that needed to be done, but it was done in the way that we teach. It was done in the way that we assess. So all in all, this type of assessment is definitely easily tied to how we are already teaching and assessing within the classroom.
So I just want to thank all of our participants and just kind of make the board aware that, when we participate in a national cohort like this or a pilot, it really is a fortunate opportunity, because through this we learn quite a deal, and you can hear from the reflection and being able to pull together the capacity that we're trying to build around authentic assessments and our own literacy of assessments. So I want to thank all the participants, Brendan, Kevin, Doreen, Dave, and also our scorers, Susan, Jen, Kimberly, and Julia, as well as our principals, Rob and Jason, that are here this evening, for really kind of allowing the district to learn an incredible great deal around this type of assessment format. And just like what our colleagues explained here, is how we can really tie curriculum and assessment together, and to really make an authentic approach within the whole entire lesson design that includes a real rich experience all the way through to the assessment as well. So thank you, everyone.